Hi, and you're now with the Forerunner Chronicles, and right now we have an awesome interview. With me right now, I have Karen Hughes. And in my estimation, she should be the most sought after interview in all of major media at this time because the information she has to share is extremely explosive. But there's a reason behind why she is not being sought after the way that I deem that she should be. And I'm sure that she's going to get into that at least briefly in this interview. But at this time, I just want to thank you for doing this interview with us right now, Ms. Hughes.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very glad to be here with you today.
And just to give you a brief overview of who we're speaking to here, this is the individual that used to be the senior counselor at the World Bank, 20 odd years in at the World Bank. But I'm not going to say any more. I want her to tell you all about her background. Go ahead, Ms. Hughes.
Well, I'm called the World Bank whistleblower, but there's actually a whole team of us. One of us is from Scotland. That's Elaine Colville. And the two of us teamed up and got statements up in the website of the UK Parliament. The last statement that we got up was in July. And there, Elaine answered the question whether the UK Parliament was protecting the public in the UK and was answering complaints of its people by saying absolutely not. She had spent about 3 or 4 years complaining to the Ombudsman, the Prime Minister. She just exposed the whole government in the United Kingdom.
Wow.
Now, I had met with the UK Serious Fraud Office in 2010, and after that, the Serious Fraud Office called up the Securities and Exchange Commission, which stonewalled. So I told the UK Parliament that the Serious Fraud Office had not followed up properly. And then I answered another question that the UK Parliament asked. They wanted to know whether they should privatize things. And I said no, because there was a terrible cover-up of fraud and corruption in the very center of the financial system, and that this was going to land the whole world in a ditch, in a currency war, if the UK Parliament didn't do something about it. I said, I told the UK Parliament about this twice already, and they are just simply sitting on their hands. So no, the UK Parliament does not have a good complaint process because we are running out of time.
Wow.
And so that's, that's part of the way the World Bank whistleblowers work. The World Bank is one of the group called the Bretton Woods institutions. There's the International Monetary Fund right across the street from the World Bank. These two organizations were created in 1944 by 44 countries. Right now, they're 188 countries.
Right.
And when this corruption hit, and by the way, I did just what a lawyer is supposed to do inside one of these organizations. The World Bank issues bonds on the capital markets, $180 billion worth of bonds. So all of the governments of the world are responsible for cleaning up the corruption.
Now, if I can just stop you for 1 minute, that's the whole reason why you're not with the World Bank anymore, because you were doing your job as a lawyer and you were speaking out about the corruption that you saw taking place within that institution. Can you talk a little bit about your run-ins with the individuals over there as you were trying to do your job?
Yes, I certainly can. And let me tell you that there are people who have been helping all along, and the number of people that have been helping has grown by leaps and bounds, because one of the things that the World Bank is it's a knowledge bank. And there was a very accurate modeling tool that was actually developed in the Department of Defense. And Jacek Kugler is a political scientist who came to the World Bank, and I was very curious about what he had to show to the rest of the world.
Right.
And so I took him with me to Ghana, and then I asked him if he would give me a freebie and model rule of law. And that was in 2004. And this model is very, very accurate. It's got a track record that if there's ever a dispute between the intelligence analysts and the model wins hands down every time. So I modeled rule of law, and it was just inside the World Bank. But guess what? The World Bank is kind of like a microcosm. It's a reflection of the whole world politics inside one organization. It's like a co-op, but the countries don't just have one country, one vote. The votes are weighted. the United States is the most powerful country. It has a 16% vote, and then the other countries have smaller shares. But so when I was modeling rule of law at the World Bank, I was actually also modeling rule of law inside the whole world. I hadn't understood that. I thought the corruption that I was reporting was just a problem internal to the organization. I thought it could be solved. But then when the U.S. Congress asked the World Bank to solve the problem, and then they fired me, I realized that there was a bigger problem behind that corruption inside the World Bank. And I'll cut right to the end of where the problem is,
Okay.
Because it's been kind of like going up in an elevator. You think you've solved the problem, and then it turns out there's corruption behind that corruption.
Behind the veil, per se.
Yeah, it's like peeling an onion to get to the inside to see where all this corruption is coming from.
And where did you find the paper trail led to?
Well, it's also the money trail. You know how they say follow the money?
The money trail, that's right.
Yes. So there's the best university in Europe is called the Federal Institute of Technology.
It's
in Zurich, Switzerland.
That's correct, okay.
Yeah, and there are 3 mathematicians who took accurate data on who owns the world's companies. There's 43,000 of the transnational corporations who have shares traded on the capital markets.
Right.
And they found out that there was a secret super entity, mostly bankers. So you've got Goldman Sachs, you've got Citibank, you've got Bank of America, you've got, Deutsche Bank. But it turns out that these banks are actually all one bank.
Wow.
Yeah. And they're the group that owns the U.S. Federal Reserve System. And they also have seized control of 60% of the annual earnings on the capital markets and 40% of the value of these companies. But they didn't do it by investing a lot of money. It's a lot of money, but they have 10 times more the power that you would actually expect them to have. And they did this very cleverly by having the same directors go from one of these companies to another. And to answer your first question, they also control all of the media. They control the television programs, they control the press, they control the movies. And so you're being brainwashed every single day of your life. And when you're trying to find explanations for what's going on, the first thing you need to do is to disregard what's ever on the news or written on the headlines, because that's just to trick you and to keep you ignorant. I can give you another analogy, and it's a very good analogy. Think of The Wizard of Oz. It was written by, I forget his first name, Baum.
Right.
He was writing something to educate people about what they needed to do for their money system. And so the Yellow Brick Road,
The economy.
that's gold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the Wizard of Oz is those groups I was telling you about that control the capital markets. They are the screen that the Wizard of Oz had.
Right.
That's what your media is telling you. And the dog Toto that pulls the curtain aside, that's me and the rest of the World Bank whistleblowers. And the world is now looking to see what the Wizard of Oz has in store for them.